Tama wakes up in a dark cave, confused as hell. The last thing he remembers is battling the Demon King in his knightly armor and getting stabbed to death. The most obvious conclusion would be that he somehow got reincarnated. Tama soon realizes he can access a mental leveling system and learn his current status. A behemoth. How about that? An S-rank monster is said to be so powerful it can obliterate entire armies. Man, we're really speedrunning through the plot here, huh? Oh, and the best part? He's a kitten. Moving away from that depressing scene, we take a look at the morning routine of our second main character, a blonde elf named Arya, who probably shouldn't have opened her window if she was going to change out in the open like this. After getting dressed and shouldering a couple of long swords, the elf heads off to the dungeon, where, in the meantime, Tama realizes he has skills, takes down a slime, realizes it can eat monsters to steal their skills. Plus, he discovers he has an extra-dimensional inventory. Struggle? Never heard of it, but the cat's been hard at work. Wyvern? Minotaur? Golem? Poison Serpent? Tama's been beating monsters and collecting skills on a speedrun. Dude's collecting them like Pokemon cards. Eventually, Tama ends up falling into a trap and stuck in a face-off against a freaking S-rank Earth Dragon. Obviously not wanting to die, he tries fighting the beast, but he's nowhere near strong enough for that yet. Best he can do is defend with his Iron Body skill and scoot the hell out of there the second he sees an opening. Meanwhile, the elf with the shelf enters the dungeon looking for a fight. As she moves further inside though, she finds the complete opposite of a fight. There, lying on the ground and riddled with injuries, is Tama the cat. The next thing our reincarnated hero knows, he's back at the elf's place. Here, Arya treats the cat's injuries and wonders what a kitten is doing in the dungeon. As they spend time together, she befriends Tama, and the two happily live together while he heals. In the meantime, the little guy has a daily front row seat to the best show in town. And the best sleeping spot in the world, for that matter, lucky bastard. One day after Tama is fully healed, Arya sets out for a journey to the dungeon again. As he watches her go, Tama decides he must use the life she's saved to protect his new master. With his mind made up, he rushes after the girl and quietly stows away on her boat. Following her into the shadows, the cat enters the dungeon and wonders if she can handle the stuff in there. After all, it'd be terrible if she ran into a slime and got all slimed up. Yep, terrible. Luckily, with her speed skill, Arya is able to take down the few goblins she runs into. As Tama watches impressed, she gathers the goblin's ears as proof of her hunt. Just then, another of the monsters appears. As she faces this thing, the cat realizes something she doesn't. This goblin is a mage variant. Just as the creature sends a fire spell crashing toward the unsuspecting elf, Catman leaps in and shoves her out of the way, saving her life. Unfortunately, he can't use any of his skills without outing himself as a monster to Arya. Instead, he scratches at the goblin's face and sends it tumbling down a conveniently placed flight of stairs. Because why not? Done and dusted, Tama gets to lie on Arya's on the boat ride home. Lucky bastard. After reaching the Adventurers Guild to report on Arya's goblin kills, the pair run into a sleazeball named Cosmin. He's the typical anime pervert with too much of an ego. As he constantly pervs over Arya, insisting she joins his party, Tama has had enough and steps in. After biting Cosmin's hand and scratching up his face, he returns to his bouncy throne. Luckily, before Cosmin can retaliate for the insult, he's stopped by a massive buff crossdresser. Not even gonna question that one. After Anna the Crossdresser's introduction, Tama is officially named and adopted by Arya as her pet. Later, Arya decides to spend some quality time with Tama, petting his belly, and that's when, for some reason, this happens. What the puck did I just watch? That night, Arya's freakiness only rises higher as she downs more and more alcohol. Not only is she constantly giving Tama a show, she even decides to take him into the bath with her. There, as Tama's knightly morals and human desires fight over the heavenly view provided by Arya, the mood suddenly shifts. Feeling insecure, the elf asks Tama if she'll ever be as strong as her hero, the woman who saved her village from demons when she was just a child. Seeing her sadness, Tama gets closer and cuddles her cheek, cheering Arya up. The next day, the pair head back down to the guild with Tama resting in his new permanent riding spot. When they get there, however, they're greeted by Cosmin and an official order from the local baron. For attacking Cosmin, Tama is to be put down. As Arya falls to her knees in despair and begs for mercy, Cosmin's true plan is revealed. Pretending to be merciful, he offers Arya a chance to save Tama. A duel, with Tama's life as her reward for winning. However, if she loses, she has to marry Cosmin. Despite everyone watching uncomfortably and realizing that she's screwed, Arya accepts the duel, determined to protect Tama. And so everyone moves outside and Anna acts as the referee for the duel. Before it starts though, Cosmin does the most cliche villain crap ever, being cocky as hell and allowing his opponent to have a second fighter help out. Naturally, Tama jumps at the chance, quite literally, and stands beside Arya's side. With some encouragement from Anna, Arya accepts this and the duel begins. Right off the bat, Tama rushes at Cosmin and easily dodges his sword swings. Despite this, he realizes he can't beat the guy without using his skills, something that'll out him as a monster and end his cozy life with Arya. In the meantime, the elf in question rushes Cosmin, only to get juked and slammed in the stomach. With the cameraman risking life and limb for these close-up shots alongside Arya, Tama makes his choice. Even if he can't keep his current life, he won't let Arya be stuck with this pig of a man. As Cosmin rushes at Arya for the finishing blow, Tama jumps in and blocks with Iron Body. While everyone's still in shock at that, he uses Aether Howling to send Cosmin flying. Even worse, his sword goes flying after him and gives the man a makeshift vasectomy. Although the duel has been won, Tama sits with his head down, ready to be killed for being a behemoth. As Anna and Arya come closer though, he's shocked to hear everyone come to a completely different conclusion. Since all he's shown is elemental magic and language understanding, they believe he's an elemental cat. And so Tama is able to continue with his new life, waking up every morning in the curves of heaven itself. Lucky bastard. As for his new routine after the whole Cosmin episode, Tama awakens on top of Arya's calcium cannons. For no particular reason, he decides to snuggle up to his master as she's smiling down at him. In the process, the absolute freak of an elf gets rather excited and tells Tama to keep going. In response, the cat moves up a bit and gives her ear a lick. Unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on your preferences, this leads to Tama learning what it feels like to be a victim. Shortly after that incident, Arya and Tama head to town to meet someone. Said someone is Vulcan, a blacksmith friend of Arya's, and a cat person. Not the 50-year-old white lady kind, but a literal cat person. As Arya introduces her friend and pet to each other, Tama gets passed around between each of their jugs. Then, while Tama's still living it up on Vulcan's flesh shelf, Arya explains what they're here for today. She wants to have some armor made for Tama. After a fairly boundary-crossing session of measurement taking, Vulcan gets to work on planning out the armor for Tama. And so, Muscle Mommy Vulcan works all through the night hammering away at her latest project. The end result is a fairly puffy and cutesy set of armor for Tama that has Arya simping like no tomorrow. While Tama himself is just as happy with his armor as the others, there's one problem. Arya's other request, a weight reduction of her swords, isn't possible. As they are, the long swords are as light as they can be without being useless, and Arya still has trouble using them. To work on a solution, Vulcan suggests they form a temporary party. Then she could observe Arya fighting in the dungeon and figure out what her main problem is in combat. Once they get to the dungeon though, the other two are the ones watching Vulcan as she crushes goblin after goblin with her overwhelming strength. In the middle of this though, an orc appears, all but foaming at the mouth over the pretty ladies he's seeing. Despite her disgust at the thing, Arya zooms forward to attack at Vulcan's instruction. When Arya uses her acceleration skill, Vulcan instantly notices something's off. Unfortunately, the Ark does too and manages to block her attack. Without hesitation, Tama rushes in and uses Iron Body to fend against the monster's counterattack. This results in the Orc's weapon being destroyed, and as a result, Arya has the perfect opening to cut it down. Despite the win though, she's saddened that she couldn't take the monster down herself. Luckily, Vulcan chooses that moment to speak up and explains that Arya's long swords are making her movements too predictable. In order to test that theory out, the monster on the next floor is perfect. Arya's all for that plan until she realizes what the monster is. D-rank ropers, whose sole threat lies in their tentacles and fluids. If anyone needs a visual demonstration, all you need to do is look at Tama's thought bubble. Though Arya is hesitant for obvious reasons, Vulcan tells her that this is great for testing since the roper's random movements will force her to think on her feet. Accepting this, Arya rushes in to fight them. Using acceleration, she weaves through more and more of the roper's attacks, but doesn't seem to be getting anywhere. As Vulcan watches on, Arya eventually abandons one of her blades and speeds up even more. After watching the one-sided fight for a while, Vulcan realizes the problem and tosses Arya a pair of much smaller daggers. The second these touch Arya's hands, it's like something just clicks. Within a moment, she manages to take down one of the ropers and starts moving faster than she ever has before. Using this newfound speed, she manages to get past the second roper as well. Unfortunately, this one manages to unleash its load all over her, quite literally. Standing there, coated in jism, Arya becomes enraged and slices the roper to bits with a new special move. While Vulcan rushes over to Arya, Tama takes a chance to bite into the roper and steal its skills. As you'd expect though, the living pile of goo doesn't taste too great. Meanwhile, Arya's still going wild on the other roper's corpse for doing what only Tama is allowed to do. With the ropers defeated and Arya's weapon of choice changed, the party's goals for the day have been achieved. Before they do anything else though, Vulcan has a suggestion. Inside the dungeon, she leads them to a special hot spring for them to bathe in. As they approach the spring, kept clean by a philosopher's stone, Arya is fascinated by the magical rock. After all, the demons that attacked her village all those years ago were looking for this exact item. That aside though, it's time for some good old-fashioned skinship. And with both girls dropping their drawers completely, Tama's treated to an absolutely heavenly sight. Then, while they're soaking in the water, Vulcan makes a joke to Arya about how elemental cats can crossbreed and she should be careful when Tama gets a little bit older. To both feline individuals' shock though, the elf is turned on by this. Hell, she's practically overjoyed and tells Tama to grow up quick so she can take her first and make babies with her? Moving on from that and erasing it from my memory, the party goes on to fight even more monsters. While Arya deals with a minotaur, Tama ends up saving Vulcan from some falling debris, and she instantly falls in love as well, because I've got nothing. After that, they return to the guild, get paid for the great work they've done, get praised by Anna, and decide to make their party permanent. Something which comes with the added benefit of Tama now having 2 pairs of heavenly honkers to sleep between. The next day, Tama and Arya head out into town where they find an orphan being bullied in the street. After scaring off the bullies with Tama's reputation, they take the kid to a church where kids like her are taken care of. From there, Arya and her cleavage cat head to the guild where Anna tells the elf she's finally been promoted to C rank. The celebration over her promotion's cut short though when they hear a commotion nearby. Seeing their curiosity, Anna explains that the adventurers are all on edge. Apparently, there have been more and more disappearances recently in the nearby town of Leonard, and supposedly it's the work of demons who are abducting anyone they can get their hands on. Between her kind heart and past history with demons, it's no surprise that Arya gets fired up. Without hesitation, she tells the cross-dresser to share everything she knows about the situation. Seeing how determined Arya is to go on the quest to defeat those demons, Anna tells her she can join the knights already going. Leading them is none other than Cedric Rune, the eldest son of the Duke, party member of the Grand Mage who beat back the demons in the Great War. And perhaps most unbelievable of all, he's Anna's boy toy. Someone out there for everyone, I guess. The next morning, Arya prepares to head out to join Cedric's party for their quest. Before leaving, she begins to feel nervous about how useful she'll be even on such a quest. Luckily, Tom is there to cheer her up. Not so lucky, Anna's inner freak shines through once more, and she outright kisses the cat. For those of you still watching, what? A little while later, Arya and her party set out from town with Cedric's party. Meet Danny, Shrek Light, Kenny, and Marietta. Once introductions are out of the way, Tama finds himself being passed around between the ladies as a chesticle warmer. As if that wasn't weird enough, it turns out Arya's into getting NTR'd. At that exact moment, their carriage is brought to a stop upon running into a large horde of orcs. That doesn't last long though, as Danny heads out and slices clean through the entire horde within seconds. Most impressive of all, he does it with pure speed, not even needing to use a skill. That night, the joint party finally reaches Leonard Town. Here, the town chief explains the current situation to them and how demons keep abducting young people especially. For now, though, he tells them to rest up and gather their strength in the lodgings prepared for them. And so the adventurers feast. During the meal, Arya learns that each of Cedric's party members became knights to save their families from poverty or slavery. As for Cedric, he blames his preferences and insane battle lust for putting him on this path. After dinner, it's time for yet another hot spring scene. And this time, Tama has to control himself in the presence of not 2, but 4 gorgeous women. As usual, Arya fawns over her cat constantly, keeping him in her valley of goodness and scrubbing him down thoroughly. By the end of it all, Tama's on the verge of insanity from controlling himself for so long. Finally, after heading into the actual hot springs, the ladies get into kind of a girly action you usually expect on a H-anime link. And so, the next day, our heroes head into the dungeons near Leonard Town. There, the party of knights shows its true extent of their powers as they take down wolfman after wolfman with ease. Tama isn't one to be outdone though. With quick use of his least used skill, water howling, he carves holes through each of the monsters and ends the whole thing in a flash. After that, Arya starts losing it over her cat once again, hearts in her eyes from how hot under the collar she is getting. Unfortunately, the next room they enter holds none other than the demon, Beryl Astaroth himself. Okay then. After declaring that he has big plans for the world, the demon summons forth a bunch of A-rank trolls. At Cedric's advice, the party splits up to divide and conquer the beasts. Instead, however, Beryl reveals some kind of barrier magic to stop them from being able to help each other. With each of the members stuck fending for themselves, we get to see Cedric in action for the first time. Using dark magic that sucks the life clean out of his targets, he takes down his trolls with a manic smile. Meanwhile, Tama's stuck with none of his attacks doing any lasting damage. The way things are going, he'll have to use something he unlocked recently, evolution, to his second form. However, if he does that, then his true nature will be revealed and his time with Arya will end. Once again limiting himself because of this, Tama instead uses flame howling. Trying to burn the trolls faster than they can heal, turns the gas up to 11 and actually managed to get rid of the trolls. At the same time, Vulcan and Arya have managed to close in on Beryl himself. With an assist from Vulcan, Arya manages to close the distance fast enough to stab cleanly into the demon's chest. Unfortunately, this victory comes with a price when the demon slashes Arya's arm with his final breaths. Quickly, the others rush toward Arya. It's too late though, and she collapses to the ground while a strange poison spreads through her body. As fast as they possibly can, the party rushes Arya back to town for treatment. Unfortunately, when the doctor checks her over, he declares there's no way to save Arya. The only antidote for the poison in her system is the eye of an S-ranked Earth Dragon, and that's not something they can just get. While everyone else argues over what they can do, Arya writhes in agony. Tama makes a decision. Without wasting another second, he leaps out of the window and takes flight. No matter what he has to do or become, no matter what happens to him, Arya will survive. By nightfall, Tama has made his way back to the section of the dungeon back at home where he first ran into the Earth Dragon. Here, he faces the giant beast and makes his move. With a single mental confirmation, Tama accepts his evolution and is covered with a blinding light. When the light fades, Tama emerges in a form truly worthy of his behemoth title. Now the battle for his master's fate begins. In his new form, Tama launches flame howling at the dragon, only for it to tank the attack and clamp its jaws around his neck. Luckily, this was his plan all along. With the dragon thinking it's won, Tama's able to catch it with its guard down and land a fatal blow. With the battle almost over as fast as it begun, Tama prepares to make his move. First though, he's surprised to find himself shrinking back down to his normal form. Though he's fascinated by this, he doesn't have time to waste right now. Quickly, he stores the Earth Dragon's corpse in his inventory and flies back off to Leonard Town. With a crash that shakes the whole town, Tama dumps the dragon's body outside their party's lodging. As she's treated with the Earth Dragon antitoxins, Tama sits by Arya's side. Unknown to anyone, Arya's dreaming of the day her village was attacked by demons. Back then, when she was in danger, an elemental cat came to her rescue. Was that when she first fell in love with cats? The author didn't really even try to hide his kink with this anime, did he? Before long, Arya awakens, fully healed and ready to return home. After getting back home, Arya takes a few more days off to fully recover from the poison. In the meantime, Tama goes to the dungeon on his own. Tonight, in particular, he's planning to test out his new skills from beating and eating part of the Earth Dragon. Luckily, a Minotaur shows up at the perfect time to become Tama's punching bag. Both new skills that Tama tries, Dragon Claw and Dragon Fang, are easily worth their S-rank status. With the Minotaur ruined, Tama's free to try out another of his new skills. However, before he can get to that, a stranger appears behind him. More importantly, a stranger who acts like she knows him. Even more importantly, a stranger who wants Tama's innocence, or whatever of it Arya has left intact at least. As the insane woman chases after Tama like a succubus in heat. Tama just barely manages to escape into a tiny tunnel. From there, he manages to flee back home and crawl into bed, still traumatized by the psycho Yandere that just tried to make him a dad. The very next day, Tama finds himself forced into a supremely zesty outfit and taken out for a picnic by Arya. In this picnic, the elf talks about her past and how she became an adventurer after being inspired by her hero and savior, the Sword Saint. Once again, she speaks with insecurity about how she'll never be that brave and strong. And once again, Tama is there to comfort and encourage her. The next day, Tama and Arya head to Vulcan's shop. Thanks to all the reward money from beating Beryl and the Earth Dragon, Arya's been able to order some top-of-the-line new equipment for them, which in her case is, of course, the typical high stats armor you'd see on a female RPG character. Those threads are not protecting a damn thing. With their new equipment, the party of 3 makes their way to the dungeon, ready to test it out. As soon as it gets there, Tama uses one of his newest skills, Blessing of the Lion King. With this, the girls are both buffed significantly. This is seen quite clearly just moments later when Arya takes out a goblin at unbelievable speeds without even using her acceleration skill. Their celebration is cut short, however, as a strange laughter rings out through the dungeon. It's the same perverted woman who tried to assault Tama the night before. Luckily for Tama, Arya is here to defend him this time. With a completely serious expression, she scolds the woman for suggesting such things when Tama is still too young, which is totally not peak hypocrisy on her part. No sir. Meanwhile, the woman mistakes Tama's attitude towards Arya as meaning that the elf is even stronger than him. The idea of that terrifies her into submission. That works out pretty well too, because Arya thinks the lady's an adventurer with amnesia and decides to take her in. On the way home from the dungeon, Arya dubs the wild girl Stella. After returning to town, the ladies head to a public bath yet again, where Arya spares no effort in scrubbing down Stella and teaching her the wonders of a hot bath. Meanwhile, Tama's enjoying a whole different kind of wonder as he enjoys the view and gets scrubbed from his master. That night, while Tama's tucked away in Arya's fun bags as usual, he learns that Stella can speak to him telepathically. With this, Stella's finally able to tell him why he should know her. She's the reincarnation of the Earth Dragon he killed, and as the only person to ever show her the joy of fighting someone stronger and losing, she's now in love with him. As if to prove this, she proceeds to try and jump Tama for his baby batter right there on the spot. Luckily, Arya wakes up in time to save Tama's innocence. Well, for now Stella decides to listen and backs off, but Lord knows only how long that'll last. The next morning, Stella's relatively calm and only goes crazy over the human food available at breakfast. Well, that and her ever-present desire to smash Tama, but that's not important right now. Afterward, the 3 housemates head out into town. As they're walking and talking, Arya's conversation reveals something specific to both the non-dragons. For Tama, it's the fact that Stella thinks Arya is even stronger than him since she's his master. As for Arya herself, she still thinks Stella must have been an adventurer of some kind before getting amnesia and suggests that they try that out now. For whatever reason, the reincarnated dragon is extremely excited by this idea and instantly says yes. Enter Vulcan's shop, providing the perfect armor to really emphasize her strengths. Yeah, strengths. When Arya suggests getting some more protective gear, Stella reveals something amazing. She's actually a rare breed of human called a dragon newt, capable of transforming certain body parts into those of a dragon. With her armor chosen, Stella goes on to pick her weapons, specifically a massive black iron shield with a great sword to match, each of them far heavier than any normal person could lift. In the process, she constantly flirts telepathically with Tama, telling him that he taught her the joy of fighting as well as love. With their equipment picked out, the party heads into the dungeon. As soon as they head in, though, Stella charges ahead of everyone else in search of prey. Before anyone can say psychopath, she's already found a group of goblins and crushed them with nothing more than her own brute strength. When the next goblin sneaks up behind her, she uses her weapons for the first time and turns the poor monster into green paste. To the side, Tama is equal parts amazed and unnerved by Stella's battle lust. Arya, on the other hand, gets the completely wrong idea, thinking that Stella is fighting off pure instinct because of her amnesia. Seeing Stella's desire for more of a challenge, the party heads to the next level. Even though the Amazon goddess of a woman tears through the orcs like they're nothing, even using her shield as a battering ram for fun. Now, however, the level they're going down to next is the true test, as Arya remembers. the dragon level with the terrors that are ropers. Seeing her confusion when she spots the monster, Tama warns Stella against fighting the creature. Internally though, I'm pretty sure he wants to see it because what the hell are those thought bubbles, little bro? Sure enough, Stella ignores Tama's warning and rushes at the roper, only for her weapon to be instantly grabbed. As she plays tug-of-war with the monster, Stella is completely unprepared for the thing suddenly spraying its load all over her. Feeling equal parts disgusted and violated, Stella suddenly goes into a frenzy, screaming and flailing her arms around like a maniac. While Arya and Vulcan watch in concern, Tama realizes that she's reverted to her dragon instincts as a coping mechanism. Not wanting anyone to get hurt unnecessarily, Tama proceeds to reveal an ability from when he first ate one of these ropers. With the tentacle skill, he creates several super long duplicates of his tail and uses them to get Arya and Vulcan to safety. Next, he restrains the roper and uses water howling to blast a hole clean through the thing, destroying it with ease. With the danger dealt with, Tama speaks to Stella and encourages her to fight as a human without fear, for he will protect her. While swooning over Tama's words, Stella accepts Vulcan's offer to join their party and thinks about how she always wanted to do this, to do something truly fun. Meanwhile, Tama's stuck dealing with his master, who apparently just discovered that she has a thing for tentacles. Or at least Tama tail-shaped ones. Right as Arya's freaky ass is about to turn this into a full-on H anime, Vulcan steps in and beats some sense into the girl. Afterward, Arya explains the ideal roles for each member of their party to fill. Mainly, Stella will be their tank, Arya and Vulcan the support fighter damage dealers, and Tama the all-arounder. Using this formation, they face the next orc horde they run into. Stella rushes forward as planned, playing her role to perfection by drawing the horde's attention. Unfortunately, she forgets all about the plan when the orcs start running away and decides to give chase instead. Luckily, Tama expected the dragoness to have no impulse control and had its blessing of the lion ready. Quickly, he applies it on Arya and Vulcan, allowing them to breeze through the fight. From there, the party's teamwork only gets better, eventually even taking down higher-tier ropers with ease. To finish the day off, the four head to the secret hot springs from their last visit here. Being as fascinated with the whole bathing thing as ever, Stella wastes no time before chucking off her outfit and diving in. Soon enough, all three women are in the bath, fully exposed to the elements in Tama's eyes. Even faster than Stella jumped into the water, the girls end up in an argument over who gets to smother Tama in their, well, you know at this point. As calm as she usually is, even Vulcan gets involved in the argument. In the end, the pressure from all the flesh around him is too much for Tama's tiny body, and the cat is launched right up to the cave's ceiling. Later that evening, the party returns to the Adventurers Guild to report the day's earnings. After introducing Stella and Anna to each other, the latter informs them of a special client who's looking for somebody trustworthy. This client is a man named Reese, and he wishes to hire Arya's party on Anna's recommendation. The mission is a simple cargo protection job, and it will last a few days. Unfortunately, Vulcan's got some important business at the shop for the next couple of days, so she can't go. And so, the party heads out with Reese to see the special cargo he wants them to guard. Pulls off the tarp and reveals it, though. It leaves one of them in a state of utter shock and horror, because the cargo Lays is moving is none other than the skeleton of the S-rank Earth Dragon, Stella's skeleton. As Reese explains how he managed to get the dragon skeleton, Tama, noticing Stella's reaction, turns to ask if she's okay. Turns out, the reminder of how Tama dominated her is only making the freaky dragon lady excited. Yep, that checks out. With the others unaware of their telepathic conversation, they move on after Reese's explanation and meet Anna to accept the quest. While they're at it, the cross-dresser casually informs Arya that she's been promoted to B rank for all her recent achievements. And so, the next day, Stella, Arya, and Tama set off with Reese on their guard duty quest. Cue travel montage. No, really, the animators decided to chill on this. That night, the group makes camp, sharing dinner around a small fire. Over the meal, Reese lets it slip that the buyer for his dragon skeleton has been collecting a suspicious number of rare materials. According to him, a great war might be on the horizon. Oh, and Reese has a fiancée. Yeah, I'm sure that's not foreshadowing anything shady. On that ominous note, the travelers turn in for the night. As they fall asleep, though, a strange aura appears over the forest around them, changing the terrain itself. When Tama and Arya head outside to investigate, Reese offers an explanation. Most likely, this is a new labyrinth forming, since they can appear in empty places. Determined not to get caught in one, Stella quickly orders everyone to get ready to head out. Luckily, they manage to make it through the forest before the labyrinth fully forms. Since it presents an opportunity to find rare materials and treasure, though, they decide to go explore it later. Sure enough, after settling down outside the forest, Stella, Arya, and Tama head back to the labyrinth. As soon as they enter the thing, Stella wants to rush in and bash some heads. Luckily, Arya's got some advice from Vulcan to deal with her. With the simple act of pimping Tama out for petting, Stella is now completely obedient to Arya. Suddenly, a pink light appears before them and leads them deeper into the forest while speaking of treasure. Following it, Arya and her teammates end up being ambushed by some C-rank ape monsters. Luckily, between Stella being really effective distraction and Arya's insane speed, the chimps go down like a bunch of chumps. With the sad excuse for a battle over, the group is able to investigate the voice that's been leading them around. To their surprise, it belongs to Lily, a high pixie, and her friend, Fairy, a high dryad. While Arya explains to Stella that these two are fairies who live in the woods, the girls reveal their motivation for reaching out to them. Tama. They want to be friends with Tama. With the fairies doing everything to Tama that she wishes she could, Stella gets a little more than annoyed. Luckily, these girls are able to change the topic and reveal that they actually have led them to a treasure chest. Inside said chest, Arya finds a super shiny and super rare potion, which they'll have Rhys check out later. For now, though, they've got more looting to do. According to the fairy girls, there are more treasure boxes in this labyrinth. The only catch is that they need a certain key first. Luckily, it's just a few trees and bee monsters away. Between Stella's raw strength and Arya's speed and Tama's support, the monsters are down and the keys retrieved in record time. Now that they have the key, Lily reveals that it actually leads to this labyrinth's boss room, where there's sure to be the best loot chest yet. Before they take that challenge on, though, Arya tells the others they have to head back to town and rest up to be safe. Seeing that their new friends are about to leave already, the fairies quickly latch on and insist on visiting the town with them. Unfortunately for Arya, this turns out to be the fairies' first time visiting a human town, which means that they're constantly wandering off and putting themselves at risk of getting lost, or worse, kidnapped. Now that she's stuck playing Babysitter Simulator 2025, Arya finds herself chasing fairies around and paying for the snacks that they've unknowingly shoplifted. Adorable kids, though, so worth it. Later, Arya visits Rhys's office in the town so he can appraise the potion they secured in the labyrinth. It turns out the thing's a truth potion so powerful that it's practically priceless. As the elf and the human talk about how she found the thing, the rest of Arya's party suddenly barges in. Because reasons. While Arya talks to the kids, Tama is the only one who notices how Rhys's expression suddenly changes, and he stiffens upon seeing the fairies. Then, with even less warning than the Squid Game's recruiter gives out, Rhys suddenly claims that he has an errand to run and rushes out of his own office. That night, Arya and her party find themselves at what's basically their favorite pastime at this point, the public baths. What precedes is a series of acts from every single female in the room that would probably land any real person in jail. A thorough scolding from Arya and a proper cleaning later, the gang gets ready for bed in the chambers they've been provided. For Tama, this might be the worst arrangement he's had since his reincarnation. Not only does he have to share Arya's valleys of softness with Lily, but it's also time to pay up on Arya's pimping him out to Stella. And so, the cat proceeds to be fondled, petted, and sniffed by the feral dragon lady. God, I'm not asking for much, just reincarnate me as a cat. In the meantime, Vulcan's finally done with her business back home and has made her way back to town where the others are. Unfortunately, she's delayed from joining them thanks to an undead being summoned to fight her. Though she's able to take the thing down pretty fast, Vulcan's confused when the thing's remains fade into the air. Back with the main group, Arya and the others make their way to the labyrinth's boss room the next day with the fairies' help. As the trio heads into the boss room, they're completely unaware of the person spying on the fairies from the trees. Inside the boss room, the monster that faces Arya is a B-rank torrent drake. As powerful as such a beast normally is, though, plot armor is stronger, literally. While Stella rushes forward, Arya tries to flank the Drake with her superior speed. Unfortunately, the Drake decides to go for her instead. Instantly switching gears, Stella leaps to Arya's defense and holds the beast back. After pushing it back, slamming her shield to grab the Drake's attention. Eventually, she managed to lock the beast in place by grappling one of its legs. With no chance of escape, Drake is defenseless when Tama uses a full-force flame howl. As if that wasn't bad enough, the cat then uses his tentacle skill to restrain the Drake even more. Without wasting a second, Arya rushes in to take advantage of this opportunity and slices the monster's throat clean open. With the Drake vanquished, the adventurer trio approaches the loot chest that spawned from it. Suddenly, a pair of golden scrolls fly out of the chest and start glowing. Before any of them can react, the scrolls infuse their knowledge into Arya, granting her an insanely powerful new skill. Specifically, the ancient holy skill is known as Sacred Blade. Unfortunately for them, the good mood from their win goes down the drain all too fast when they exit the boss room, because right outside where they last saw the fairies now lies the jar of sweets they were eating, shattered from a fall. Meanwhile, unseen by anyone, Rhys stands in his office ringing a very familiar sounding bell. As he does so, his eyes are glued to a portrait on the wall, the fiancée he spoke of called Eliza. Called it, Arya, Stella, and Tama continue searching through the labyrinth. Tama follows their scent, but it comes to an end. They eventually give up and start heading back into town. When they arrive at the inn, they are greeted by Vulcan. They catch her up on the events and tell her that their fairy friends are missing. As they discussed where to search next, a manservant for the local earl enters the inn with some guards. He informs the girls that the local baron, the Earl of Gladstone, has called for Arya to come to meet him. As he evaluates Vulcan and Stella, he tells them that they are to come along as well. Our girls begin to inform him that they are a bit busy at the moment and would be sure to visit him soon. But the butler informs them that it is a crime to refuse the Earl's commands in this town. Stella begins to tell the man to buzz off, but Vulcan jumps in and says they will of course come to see the Earl. He then tells them a carriage awaits them outside the door. Vulcan then mentions she has heard some rumors about the Earl around town. Soon we see our party in the carriage on the way to the Earl's estate. Kidnapping? Vulcan tells them to quiet down before they are heard, and then she says it is always the pretty girls who go missing. She says they can investigate if this is where the fairies have disappeared to as well. Our party is then brought in to meet the Earl. This ugly fat bastard tries to rizz up the girls and offers them some very expensive tea. Tama looks at the tea with suspicion. The Earl, of course, is insistent that they all have some. Before Arya takes a sip, Tama buffs them all with blessings of the Lion King. The girls all drink up and the Earl creeps out, asking if it tastes good. The ladies say it is delicious, but the drugs seem to have no effect upon them. The Earl and the butler then look confused, and the butler says he will go fetch a stronger batch. Just then, Stella smashes the table and demands to know where Lily and Fairy are. The Earl is startled, but says he has no idea who they are talking about. She then drops him and he hides behind the furniture, stating he needs to use his family's secret method to cleanse their bodies and souls. But first he will have them locked up. The butler then summons the guards. Stella says she is ready to smash some heads and cracks her knuckles in anticipation. Tama telepathically tells her it is not yet time for that. Arya and Vulcan try to bring the temperature down a little. But just then another guard rushes in and informs the Earl that the town is being overrun by undead. We hear that creepy bell ring once again and see more of the undead coming up from the ground. Hordes of skeletons are chasing the townfolk as they scream in terror. Back at the mansion, a guard informs him that the undead are headed this way. The fat little bastard runs off, screaming that all the guards and servants must protect him. As they all run off, Arya tells the rest they should go outside and help the townspeople. Stella is excited to finally get to crush some skulls. Arya and Vulcan begin to direct the villagers out of town. Our group then rushes toward the undead. Tama unleashes Flame Edge. Arya uses her acceleration. Stella spins her massive shield for an attack, but is quickly disappointed in how fragile the undead are. Vulcan smashes one of the walking skeletons and rescues a cornered little girl. She carries the girl on her back and brings her to the villagers. Vulcan yells that there are just too many of them. Arya says they must find the summoner. Vulcan says she will reinforce the villagers' barricade and sends the others off to find him. We then see the Earl scrambling up to the very rooftop of his mansion. As the undead start crawling up the walls, all World War Z style, he begins to realize the undead are coming specifically for him. As Arya, Stella, and Tama are running, they hear that bell ring again. Stella says it's coming from Rhys's house. Reese is standing out front holding the bell and an arrow as our group comes to confront him. Arya asks what he is doing, and he states he's getting revenge for his fiancée. Then he rings the bell and summons even more undead. Tama realizes he's a necromancer. Reese says he barely had enough power to summon just 2 skeletons, but with the power of the 2 fairies he now has unlimited mana. He says he must thank them, and then using his mana-draining arrow on the fairies he resurrects the skeleton of the Earth Dragon. Reese shouts that he finally has everything he needs to take his revenge. In a mana bubble, he floats himself and the 2 fairies up into the chest of the undead Earth Dragon. Stella begins to blast a path right through the skeleton horde, but then the undead dragon swats her away. Tama sprouts his dragon wings and flies over the top of the Earth Dragon. He uses ether howling and tries to blow apart its spine, but there is just too much mana and the undead dragon regenerates instantly. Arya then uses her brand new skill Sacred Blade. It does a lot of damage, but it takes a heavy toll on her. Tama notices this and tells Stella that they need to snatch away the fairies and make some time for her to recover. Stella then begins to plow through the undead once more as Tama soars overhead. Back at the village, Vulcan reunites the little girl with her mom and ignites a flame barrier to stave off the undead horde. Tama drops in from above and unleashes a flame howling. Stella charges ahead, but the dragon skeleton just stomps her. Tama thinks she's done for, but of course she just muscles back up under that massive shield of hers. Tama then does his tail tentacle thing and snatches away the 2 fairy girls. Stella then kicks off her boots and takes on her dragonute form. She throws off the dragon's foot and leaps in the air, hurls her giant shield to pin down 1 foot and then severs an arm off the big undead lizard. Tama attacks with flame edge and decapitates the thing. Arya steps up and with her sacred blade finally ends the bony bastard. When the dust settles, Reese is on his ass, lamenting the loss of his dragon and his ultimate revenge. Arya walks up on him, shaming him, stating his lost fiancée would not have asked for revenge. Reese is still defiant and says he can never forgive the Earl, but then a single shorter skeleton walks up to him. And as he realizes it's his long-lost Eliza, her spirit envelopes the skeleton and she transports him to a spiritual plane. She tells him he always went too far over the top for her, and he needs to apologize and atone for what he has done. He breaks down as she says he has a long road ahead, but he will make it through and fades away. The bell then disintegrates in his hand and all the undead start to disintegrate too. The next morning, we see a gallows has been set up in the town square. The Earl is in a nearby tent prepping for the show. Arya enters, bringing in a posh tea service and offers him a cup. He sits down and says he can tell this is an expensive tea indeed. Tama silently agrees, very expensive. Out on the platform, the Earl introduces our heroes as the town's saviors and the crowd cheers. Right then, Reese is brought out and set in the yoke as the Earl says he is the one who brought about the calamity. The crowd murmurs uneasily as the Earl asks how he could do such a thing. Reese states it was revenge as he is certain the Earl killed his beloved Eliza. The fat turd says of course he did, startled by his own confession. He goes on to say he killed all the missing women, only after doing very bad things to them first. Then we see Arya holding the bottle of truth potion she found in the labyrinth, telling us she put a drop in his tea earlier. The crowd immediately turns on the Earl after his confession. A few days later, Tama is resting on the bed. He tells us the Earl got a life sentence and Reese got his death sentence commuted to prison. Then, as you must expect by now, they all head off to the bath. Tama is basically indifferent to all this loveliness by now. As he serenely soaks, the fairies decide they want to scrub him down. Arya steps in to rescue him, but he gets launched up to the ceiling once more. If you made it this far, you deserve to get in the hot bath yourself. If you want to see the rest of this series, subscribe and hit the comments with drops of truth. Please enjoy this next video, my legendary hot bath masters.